Welcome everyone who has joined us today from all over Asia and Europe for this webinar on what is the future of the economy in Society 5.0. We're organizing these in partnership with the Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies and the TechForGoodInstitute. My name is Freya Chalpool and I'm the Youth Project Lead here at the Asia Europe Foundation, or ASEF as we're known as. And today I have the pleasure of guiding us through today's session. So at this point, let me give you a brief rundown of what we have to look forward to for this 1.5 hour session. So I will begin with a short introduction of the context of this session before handing over to Mr. Carsten Beck for his keynote presentation. This will then be followed by a panel discussion and QA with some experts, distinguished experts who are really excited and ready to share their insights and perspective on the future of the economy in Society 5.0 with you all here today. For the Q&A session, you will all have the opportunity to share your thoughts and ask your questions to our experts here. For this purpose, you can use the Q&A function on your Zoom panel, where you can pose your questions, you can upvote any that you find really interesting, or you can even reply to them and engage in a discussion. Feel free also to use the chat to discuss also anything you wish. We'll also be asking you to answer a few polls throughout the workshop, and we look forward to hearing your input and your thoughts on these points as well. But without further ado, I think we can get started. So firstly, what is the context of this session? So as many of you know, ASEF itself is an intergovernmental organization working to strengthen mutual understanding between Asia and Europe. Across different thematic areas, we bring together a wide variety of governmental and civil society stakeholders to further strengthen the connectivity and opportunities for collaboration to solve global challenges between the regions. So our flagship project, the ASEF Young Leaders Summit, is a leadership development program for young leaders across Asia and Europe to learn, to exchange, and to connect with each other. This session today is part of the online knowledge building phase of the 6th edition of the project, of which we have 80 selected young leaders for. We were also very happy to be able to open up today's session to more young leaders. So I'm really excited to see that we have over 160 young people here with us today, which is really, really exciting. And we can't wait for you all to hear what our experts have to say. At ASEF, we've been exploring this topic of leadership in Society 5.0 for 3 years now, focusing on how we can prepare young people for the kind of leadership that is needed for a more human-centered society that balances economic advancement with the resolution of social problems through the integration of technology. So today's session really aims to give you the food for thought and inspiration that we hope you take beyond the session for deeper discussions with your peers and those around you. We've brought together a group of expert speakers from a variety of different backgrounds to share with you their insights. And of course, we always aim at ASEF to ensure perspectives from both Asia and Europe, as well as to consider various diversity factors such as gender balance. Unfortunately, on this occasion, we face a slight challenge in this respect. We have a panel today with 3 gentlemen who are experts in their fields. Due to some last-minute scheduling challenges that were unforeseen, we couldn't engage a female panelist. And we want to acknowledge that the panel does not reflect the gender diversity that we typically strive for. But we really appreciate everyone in your understanding. And we remain at ASEF committed to ensuring a balanced range of voices in all of our future sessions. But with that, I believe we're ready to get started further with the first segment of this session, the keynote presentation. So to set the scene and provide an overview of the future economic trends across Asia and Europe, we welcome Mr. Carsten Beck. Carsten has been working with trend analysis and scenario processes at the Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies for more than 30 years, in more than 30 countries as well. The themes Carsten has been working on all relate to how global and local trends shape the future for organizations, companies, and societies. Carsten has done scenario processes in retail, HR, finance, business to business, governments, and NGOs to help them prepare for the future. He has a master's in political economy from Copenhagen University. So thank you so much for joining us today, Carsten. We look forward to hearing your presentation. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Freya. It is indeed a pleasure to be here and to be partnering up with ASEF on this program. Let me just see if I can share my screen. Oops. Freya, can you see my screen now?
Yeah, looks good from our
Good
side.
one, good one. Yeah, as I said, it really is a pleasure to be here to talk about the future and to talk about Society 5.0, which is actually also a topic that we have been discussing throughout my career at the Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies. What kind of sort of logic will be present in all our societies in the future. So super happy to be here. Super happy also to have the panelists, Dr. Roberto, Dr. Sultan, and Dr. Fitra on board. Very much looking forward to hearing your input and insights. And I have to say, Freya, I loved your comment about diversity. I mean, we economists, that's it's difficult. It's difficult sometimes. And actually, and this was going to be one of my points just 5 minutes into the presentation, but let's take it right now. We at the Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies, we see diversity when talking about the future as a key element which government, societies, and organizations they tend to forget about when you're having these conversations. So this diversity of input across all parameters is super critical and actually not easy. So I really love that remark. But with that said and done. We have the next 20 minutes where I will talk a little bit about how we see the world at the Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies, SIFS in abbreviation, and what we see as some of the key trends and some of the key ways we think about Society 5.0. I hope this will inspire you. I see this as a very open discussion. Every discussion about the future is open, but certainly in this day and age where there is lots of challenges facing our countries. I think this openness and actually also once again the diversity is very important. But to get going, just 2 words about SIFS, think tank based in Copenhagen, Denmark, working globally with organizations, United Nations, OECD, European Commission, investment banks, global companies, also NGOs about future scenarios and doing foresight processes. We are explorative, which also means that we don't have a sort of an end goal. We're not normative when we talk about the future. We are interdisciplinary, which is super important. That we don't just have the perspective of economists, but we have the perspective of all kinds of people when discussing the future. And as you can see on the picture to the left on your screen, I guess you know one of the old gentlemen, once again, old man, Mr. Kennedy, President Kennedy, and the gentleman to the right is actually the founder of SIFS. You probably already guessed that, the former General Secretary of the OECD, Mr. Torkild Christensen. So that's SIFS. Then let's move to foresight. How do we actually go about it? And the thing is, when you talk about the future and you talk about future trends, you often tend to talk to experts, just like we have lots and lots of people with great expertise in this call here today. And the thing about experts is they have lots and lots of knowledge. But there's also a danger. And the danger is if you are talking to experts about a future that is open and where we should go and explore, the danger is that we will tend to sort of jump to conclusions. We will look at trends, we will look at our models, and we will say, yeah, let's search for answers, and let's sort of search for the right answers. And in foresight processes, especially when there's lots and lots of turmoil with artificial intelligence, with a new geopolitical setup, etc., we actually recommend that you focus less in these processes about the answers. Of course, we need answers in the end, but you also have a huge emphasis on actually exploring in Society 5.0 what are the right questions to ask, and that is a different conversation to have, and it's also a conversation where experts sometimes feels a little bit uncomfortable because we are sort of programmed to search for answers. But when you look at economics, and when you look at, say, a concept like growth, one of the things we're discussing at SIFS is, okay, but what does growth mean in the future? With the planetary boundaries we have, with the huge and vast potential we see in especially AI at the moment, what does growth actually mean, both in quantitative terms? I guess we all know that, I mean, if you look at the global economy, it's humming along with 3.5% or something like that, average growth rates, and of course, there's the differences between countries. But could we envision? Let's be super positive here in the beginning and say we actually will be supported by AI-based systems going forward. Could we see a growth perspective that is radically different from what we see today? So, asking the right questions, that frame of mind for all of us, for all our organizations, is very, very important. Do we do this? No. In my experience, and as you said, Freya, I've been doing this for many, many years. Most of us and most organizations, most big companies, they still think about the future like Taleb's Turkey. So they're sort of in a Turkey mindset. And I'm not sure whether you've thought, given it a lot of thought about how Turkeys think about the future, but they pretty much think like this. So if you are a turkey and you're standing on day one and you're looking at your life, it's good. It's yes, water. There's feed. There's other turkeys. Everything is fine. And then the next day it's maybe a little bit better and you're grown a little bit and the outlook is positive. So this is this incremental, stepwise approach to the future. And once again, this is what economists we tend to do. We tend to have this stepwise approach to future trends. And as yeah, you probably already guessed it, this approach might actually work in many instances on many days, but not on all days. And sometimes also in the life of a turkey, something radically can actually change. And that's why we need scenarios when we talk about the future. We need different narratives, and I hope our distinguished panelists will be able to share some of their scenarios later in this session. So that's another key element of doing proper foresight. Then a final sort of word of warning is that how can I phrase this? I mean, no matter who you ask, all the people on this call, and we are many, and I'm so happy for that. When you ask about the future of your society or your organization, you will of course say the future is important. I mean, we're all going to sort of live in the future as societies, organizations, and people. But the problem is, if you ask governments, if you ask NGOs, if you ask companies, is the future also urgent? Then the answers and the conversation actually changes, because what we see time and time again for all kinds of organizations is that yes, it's important, but it's not urgent, because right here, right now, we have to put out a fire. We have to change whatever kind of setup is not working in our organization. So how to actually integrate foresight and futures thinking into government policies, into company strategies, is a critical concern. And I would have to say, I mean, normally I see myself as a very sort of positive and optimistic person, but here we have the work cut out for us. There's still lots of things to be done to sort of make sure that the decisions we take today, also in the economic sphere, is not only putting out the fires and looking at this urgency about the short-term consequences, but also looking at the long-term perspectives. It's not easy just to give you a few numbers. I mean, this is an economy session here. I really like this quote by Paul Krugman from the States, where he said some years ago, productivity is not everything, but in the long run, it is almost everything. And to the left on your screen, you have it's just the U.S. Productivity growth rates from the Second World War and up until today. And when you have these conversations about, okay, how can we get back on track? If we want to get back on track, but I guess we do with a productivity growth perspective that is actually not super positive compared to other periods in time since the Second World War. So this is dichotomy between the short term and the long term. So with that said and done, let's look at the trends. And this is a big slide, I know, and I'm sure, ASEF, you will be able to share the slides at a later stage with all the participants. But here you have the trends that we see as important right now on a global scale, highly aggregated. I mean, there will be lots of other perspectives. I cannot emphasize this is not this enough, but we see this as a starting point for discussion about our global societies. When you have these discussions about trends, of course, you will discover lots of uncertainties and things that are not clear, or where you see a multitude of opportunities or paths to the future, and that's where you need to make scenarios. But just on a very high level, some of the big ticket items right now is, of course, how global supply chains will develop and how this fragmentation of globalization will continue to unravel and unfold due to changing political views and perspectives in a number of our countries. Not all our countries, but in a number of our countries. Then we have demographics, which is one of these long-term trends that people tend to forget, but the aging, the urbanization, and the population growth and decline in many of our countries. How are we actually going to deal with population changes? We talk about it. We talk about fertility levels and all of that, migration patterns, etc. We have political opinions about this. It's a highly contested area, of course, once again, in many of our countries. And we need to find, I would say, better answers to this. Then to the right, we also have, of course, sustainability, planetary boundaries, and environmental changes. For me, that will absolutely be climate as the number one concern in that realm. But of course, you can discuss that. And then finally, health aspects in all our countries. And to the left, you can see the technological and the economical trends that we see right now. If we take the economical, we still have growth. But one of my concerns, and I will share that a little bit later in my presentation, is that the economic growth perspectives in a number of our countries, for a number of reasons, are a little bit less positive than we maybe envisioned some 10 to 15 years ago. And I think we need to address that. And I think also the global institutions, IMF, the World Bank, etc., is looking into this. Inequality, unfortunately, would be my opinion, also seems to be a continued discussion. And with AI and the consequences of AI for labor markets, maybe inequality will be an even more important dimension going forward. Then we have the new economy, the platforms, the networks, the service providers, the aggregated platforms, especially in Asia, doing fantastic work and creating new opportunities going forward. And then finally, of course, we have tech and technological development. And as you can see, we have engineering advances, we have greater interconnectedness. That's basically just the internet continuing to be important. We have biotech and we have AI and automation. Personally, but once again, I'm very much looking forward to hearing our panelists on this. I would say AI for me is the big game changer. How much, how fast, and how we structure this, we can discuss. There's some very positive upsides to this. There's also, of course, as we all know, some potential threats and downsides. So for me, AI, just like with the climate and the environmental changes, that is the big driver. So these 16 trends, they are basically what we see right now here at SIFS. And of course, I would like to be challenged on this. So that would be our first poll, Freya, to all of you. Thinking about your country, what you just heard, and I know it's been super fast. What do you see as the most important trends if we look to the next 5 to 10 years, both globally and also in your country? And I would be super happy if some of you could tell me that I've actually missed out on some key trends that you see as important. So please share your thoughts in the polls on the quiz that is up on your screen right now. And I'll just give you 30 seconds to do that. Some results or how did we see the results? Can you share them on the screen? Should I stop sharing or?
Okay, we'll end the poll now so that you can
Yeah,
see also the answers that will come.
great. Yeah, I said the book.
People are very excited to share their answers.
Very good. I'm super excited as well to see them.
Give us 1 second while
Yeah,
we get the
all good.
technical side of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, all good. And of course, when you do a foresight process in real life, all of these trends they influence each other. Some of them might actually influence in a negative way. Some of them might influence in a positive way. And also, when you do foresight in companies or in societies, you will have counter trends to consider as well.
Give us 1 second,
Yeah, all
just
good.
getting a hold of it.
All good. All good. Maybe while we get the technical things to work, I can just let me see, share this is slide just to show you. This is actually an old slide, 2 years old. Just showing you that there's lots of way of working with trends. Here you have the World Economic Forum. It's 2023. What they see as the global risks going forward. And as you can see, back in 2023, it was cost of living in the short term, and then it was climate in the long term. So just saying that there's many ways of orchestrating and talking about these trends.
Okay, Carsten, if the participants can see the spotlight on our screen, they should be able to see the trends as well. I hope you can see them too. It's
Yeah,
another shared screen. We have a nice word cloud here of
yeah,
the trends
sounds
that they see as the most important.
yeah. I can't see the word cloud. Should I stop sharing or?
Perhaps if you want to temporarily stop sharing and then you
Yes,
can
good.
see it yourself as
I will
well.
do. Yes, very, very nice. Oh, I mean, you're futurist, all of you. You have changed in the middle, and it's the number one content. I really, really like that. Thank you. Could we see the if there's any suggestions for new trends? Yes, very good. Good one. Polarization, I really, really like that. Unfortunately, you've written wars as well. I really, really think that that is unfortunately going to be part of the things we need to consider going forward. Uh, Education, yes, I fully agree. And once again, I'm looking forward to hearing our panelists on also on education in this day and age. What is it actually we're telling all our young people in the world that they should prepare for? Planetary attitudes and values. I like that as well. We have a thing called the World Value Survey down in Holland, and what we see is actually that values and attitudes are getting more dispersed and more heterogeneous in the world right now. So super, super good. Thank you so much, all of you. And uh, let's get back to the slides. Oops, let's see. We'll just have another 5 minutes and then we open for the panelists. Very good. Thank you so much. You're all futurists. Yeah, just to give you one or two examples on how to work with trends. This is just a generic example. It's taken from Japan Times, and it's about population and demographic developments in Japan. Could have been any other example that I have had chosen here today, but this just goes to show for me, if you look at some of the numbers to the left on your screen, at least when I read numbers like this, and of course I know we are far into the future and no one can predict anything, and especially not that far into the future, but the potential for change in the Japanese economy and the Japanese society based on just this actually super boring trend, demography. We all know demographic trends is really, really critical. So it just goes to show that trends and megatrends are important. And then, as you wrote, and once again, I thank you for that. You wrote about change being one of the most important sort of new trends. I fully agree to that. And of course, these changes, some of them could be quite drastic. Here we have, yeah, I mean, we all talk about the new American government and the new president, and I mean, when you look at the consequences and at the magnitude of changes going on, at least in the short term, it is actually quite historic. To the left, you have the average tariff rates from the United States back 200 years ago, and as you can see, this is actually historical times. Whether that will have a consequence on global supply chains, I mean, we can discuss. So if you look to the right on your screen, you actually have a globalization index from Switzerland, the COF globalization index, and as you can see, the world has been globalizing in many aspects, economical, political, and social, since well, not since, but the past 55 years. But you can also see that it is stalling right now, and whether we will see a drop or the stalling will continue, we don't know. But as companies and as organizations and societies, we need to prepare for a number of scenarios. One thing that really concerns me is, and this is based on a study from the IMF, is the middle income trap. I see a lot of our countries struggle at the moment because we have seen lots of progress, we have seen lots of growth, but taking this growth perspective for the majority of countries and economies in the world and getting to sort of the next level has historically been very, very difficult. We've seen countries like Korea and Poland, partly Chile, making this next leap. But I see that actually as a very, very big challenge for a lot of our countries. In Europe, it's a little bit more. We need to wake up to all the Europeans on this call. Lots of reforms, lots of new political agenda points, and basically, we need to find a better model for financing all the things we need to do in Europe. But that's maybe more of a short-term thing. And then finally, I mentioned this a couple of times, AI and um, AGI. How much of an impact will this have? And on the one hand, you could say, yeah, we live in the day and age of AI today. We cannot really see a lot of consequences in the macroeconomic data yet. But the potential for radical change on labor markets, in supply chains, in economies at large is absolutely there. And then again, I actually like Tyler Cowen. He's a professor of economics at George Mason University in the States. But as he says, yeah, but you cannot just in isolation look at a trend. Also, when it's a trend like AI, you need to look at all trends together. And I like sort of his way of sort of saying, yeah, but there's energy issues related to AI. There's human stupidity related to AI. There's regulation, how that will be put into practice. There could be data constraints, or it could just be institutional sluggishness that prevents us from harvesting some of the positive upsides of superintelligence and AI. So the final thing I would like to share with you in this presentation, and sorry it took just 5 minutes more than expected, that's how it goes with presentations, is some of the key uncertainties we work with at ASEFs. Because now we've talked about trends, but of course, we also look at uncertainties because we are explorative and we think there's a lot of uncertainties right now. So I'm just going to share with you two more slides and then we'll have a final poll and then we'll hand it over to the panelists for the discussion there. Here you have the geopolitical uncertainties as we see them at SIFs at the moment. It's supposed to be global. Of course, it's a think tank based in Europe, so let me know if I've missed something. I would be very happy to add things to this list. But as you can see, the way we structure this is we have a set of areas where we see a lot of uncertainty. And then we try to, when we talk about uncertainties, we try to make polarities. So what do we see as sort of the extremes in these discussions and debates? And yes, there could be more than two polarities. There could be 3 or 4 or 10, I don't know. But in order to structure the discussions, we often say let's look at the extremes and have conversations around that. And as you can see, we have lots and lots of uncertainties when it comes to global power shifts, transition of societies, alliances, ideologies. As one of you wrote, or many of you maybe wrote, arms control and war, the future of global organizations like the UN and the setup of global collaboration. Europe, good or bad, the consequences of big companies and their influence on economies in China and East Asia and also the States and Europe. Transatlantic relations, access to raw materials and supply chain questions, and then position of access, and that's about sort of Russia, where we see the position of these axes. And then also for economics, we have lots and lots of uncertainties. Some of them we have touched upon already. Factor productivity, will we get back or not? Impact of conflict, debt and debt levels, really, really critical. And as we all know, especially in the States, seems to be some lessons that needs to be learned pretty fast. unemployment in the global south, but also unemployment driven potentially by technological developments, the future of the American dollar and the financial institutions and setups, the global middle class. Unfortunately, some of the numbers we just seen from the World Bank is telling us that the global middle class is still increasing, which is positive and good, but the growth rate is really, really low compared to 10 to 20 years ago. Debt and the funding of retirement and healthcare, taxation, stability, globalization and trade, and social mobility. Once again, I know it's a lot, but I would like to ask you, based on this, and this is the last poll we'll have, and Freya, if you could help me here one more time, which of these uncertainties that I've been talking about, or maybe come up with your own uncertainty, do you think is the most important in the next 10 years? So when you lie in your bed at night and are thinking about the future, what is your biggest question? What is your biggest uncertainty? I would like to know that. And that's the final thing in this presentation. And you'll have 30 seconds. Yes.
Okay, we're gonna stop the poll there.
Yes, that's
See and then get the results up. Sorry if you didn't have a chance to put on, but you're welcome to put your answers also in the chat in case you didn't have a chance yet. We'll just get the results up on the screen.
very good. Super curious to see them.
Us too. There we go.
And personally, I would say there's, at least in my experience, there's way more uncertainties, and they are on a more, how can you put it, deeper level here in 2025 than they were 10 or 15 years ago. This is some of these uncertainties are quite radical. Should I stop sharing, Freya?
Yes, perhaps you want to pause your sharing for a moment, and then you can see also the uncertainties on the screen that our participants today have highlighted as the most important for them.
Great. Looking good. I agree. We have global, we have conflict, and we have youth as sort of the key words here. For me, and once again, now, dear panelists, we are ready to hear from you just in 2 seconds. The impact of the strains we are putting on the global system right now. I think that's a super important topic, and of course, unfortunately, the level of conflict in the world right now is very critical. As and I just saw one of the participants in this call from Bangladesh mentioning healthcare and healthcare related issues as well. So of course, for all of us. Sorry, for all of us here on this call, it's one thing to have these global discussions and very international discussions in our local communities and in our local societies. There might be other topics that are even more important. So thank you so much for that. Let's wrap it up here and let's try to hand it over to the panelists. So, Freya, do you want to say something before we start the discussion?
Yes, thank you, Carsten. Let me pop some slides back up just to introduce our panelists and get everyone ready to hear from our experts, but so you all know who we're hearing from exactly today. So we have a wonderful panel today, a very distinguished group of experts. Allow me first to introduce Dr. Fitra Faisal, who is recognized as one of the most prominent economists in Indonesia and currently serves as the expert staff and spokesperson on economic issues at the Presidential Communication Office. Dr. Fitra Faisal actively provides forward-looking macroeconomic insights to support investment strategies and guide market positioning as a senior macro strategist at PT Samuel Securitas Indonesia. And in parallel, he's also a commissioner at InfraDigital, a pioneering fintech company to strengthen both economic access and social impact across Indonesia. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Fitra Faisal. Next, we have Dr. Roberto Galang, who is the Dean of the John Gokongwei School of Management in Ateneo de Manila University. Prior to joining Ateneo, he spent the previous 9 years working as a senior private sector specialist for the World Bank and the International Financial Corporation. He also has extensive academic experience as a faculty of international business and strategy at Ateneo and the Asian Institute of Management, and has also held international positions at LECG, Penchuan and Berlin in New York, and the Navigant Consulting in Washington, D.C. He has a PhD in management, an MSc in development economics, and an AB in communications. And last but not least, I'd like to welcome Dr. Zoltan Pogacar, who's an economist, sociologist, and associate professor and an expert in international political economy, associate professor at the University of Sopron and former researcher at the Hungarian Academy of Sciences. Currently, he's a lecturer at ELTE and former lecturer at the Central European University, as well as the program director at the Széchenyi István Doctoral School of Business and Organizational Sciences at the University of Sopron. Has a PhD from the University of Sussex and is also accepted into a PhD program in economics at Corvinus University. Thank you all so much for your time and for accepting our invitation to join us today. A reminder to our audience that you can add your questions to Carsten and our panelists in the Q&A. And at this point, I would like to hand the floor back to Carsten to lead our panel discussion, and I'll pop back in a bit to help look at the questions from the Q&A when you're ready. Carsten, please.
Thank you, Freya, and thank you, dear panelists, for participating in this session. I'm very, very humbled that you're all here today. We have also for the audience, so we're all on the same page. We have 10 to 15 minutes where it will be the three of you sharing the stage, and then we open for questions from the audience. So, opening statements, Dr. Fitra, very happy to meet you. What would your perspectives be when you look to Society 5.0?
Yeah, thank you, Carsten. So this is actually people-centered, right? So what we have been seeing for the past few years, or over a decade, is actually the digital transformation that is transforming the whole world, globalization, digitalization. And I remember a book written by Richard Baldwin, The Globotics Upheaval. So before, he also wrote another book that is called The Great Convergence. So we are seeing that between the developed and developing countries, we are actually on the verge of converging to each other. So based on the economic theory, we have the Exer-Ohlin theorem, meaning that if we actually include economic intensities among countries even more, so this will actually expedite our convergence factor. So not to mention that over a decade, we already seen what have been said by Klaus Schwab in 2016, the era of 4.0, digital transformation, that is actually serving as the basis of also the Society 5.0. Because after information society, we are actually go beyond technology, which is actually people-centered. So, but the thing is, we are actually quite overwhelmed by the digitalization. Just like what Baldwin said in the book of the Globotics Upheaval, we have globalization in one hand, and we have also the upheaval on the other hand. Globotics means globalization and robotics. We have the automatization, which is actually, pushing people away from the industry, because now we are becoming more productive in a way that we are actually pushing people away, especially those who are marginalized, those who don't have enough skill set to be compatible with the industrial needs. So that's also another problem. But by 2030, according to some research, one of which is coming from McKinsey, for the case of Indonesia, there will be a job displacement, about 20 million of people being displaced, 20 million of jobs, going away. But there will be a 30 million of job being created along the way within, maybe 5 to 6 years ahead. So there's a surplus of 10 million. But the question is whether or not, for the case of, for example, ASEAN member countries, which is actually trying to utilize the demographic dividend, whether or not we can actually utilize this demographic dividend. For the case of Indonesia, we are searching and trying to be compatible with the industrial needs. But along the way, within 1 year, we have 94,000 of people being laid off. Within just from this year, compared to last year, year on year, 94,000 of people being unemployed. But luckily for the country like Indonesia, we have also the informal sectors that absorb the less productive formal sectors. We have the shrinking formal sectors. People are actually being moved away from the industry. Job displacement. This is also happening also in the developed countries. As a matter of fact, why President Trump using the reciprocal tariff is also to protect the domestic industry, which is actually the manufacturing sectors in the industrial belt. They are being pushed away because of the automatization. But of course, the Indonesian government is also trying to invest more in the human capital so that our demographic dividend is not going to be a demographic catastrophe. So that's actually our constraint of growth. The people can be the constraint of growth because if you have less productive population, this will be actually the one that can be the lagging factor of growth. But if we can push, if the government now is trying to push the economy through the people, through investing more, using every focus to invest to the human capital. So this will be our source of growth. But this is actually easier said than done. For the case of Indonesia, we have only limited time to escape from middle income trap. So that is why people-centered technology should come into place, should be a part of our strategy. Another way to see it is if you remember, as an economist, have been becoming known of the theory of the structural transformation. So we are moving from agricultural sector to industry and also to services, and to be in line with the Society 5.0, from hunting, agriculture, and then we have the industry, information, and the people. But the problem is, for the case of Indonesia, as an emerging countries, as a developing countries, we are now still stuck between agriculture and industry. For the case of Indonesia, the contribution of the manufacturing sector to the GDP is only 18 to 19%. If we compare it to the early period of 2000, it was 26%. So country like Indonesia experiencing deindustrialization, which is actually quite unnatural. So Danny Rodrik called this phenomena as a premature deindustrialization. So we are not going to the services yet. We are not going to the information, communication, and technology yet because our industry is not serving well. But the problem is when we expect to move forward, and then we have the missing middle. Hollowing out. The middle is actually gone. But we are now going to services for the case of Indonesia. Now we are selling things, but we are not producing enough product. So we create economic fragility. So that's my thing.
Thank you, Dr. Fitra. Very much appreciated. And let's move around the table. Dr. Roberto, once again, thank you for being here with us today. Your perspectives and viewpoints on Society 5.0.
Okay. So thank you very much, Karsten, for inviting us. It's wonderful to be able to represent our university, Ateneo de Manila, in this talk. So let me begin and take off from where Dr. Fitra mentioned. No? And I think all of us have this concept of digitalization, digital transformation, artificial intelligence as one of the major drivers of Society 5.0. In fact, we term 5.0, that's really a very tech named title, right? And so I think now more and more of us is really being beholden into tech. We've all seen the magical capabilities of artificial intelligence. Even in our university, it's much easier for us to create syllabus, to create quizzes, to create tests. Our students write essays faster. And it's been a tool that's practically miraculous, right? Now we can teach students a lot of new content like coding and programming, which very difficult to teach before. But now that they have their own tutor who can debug codes, who can give them advice on how to write a better program, right? We can now, what used to take a semester to teach can now take 1 or 2 weeks, right? So this is truly a miracle, and not just in education, in health, in scientific discovery, in transport, etc. Right? But I think the one thing that we wanted to highlight in this discussion is that while AI and tech and digital transformation, e-commerce platforms, they're all great, but there is still a digital divide. This was something that we spoke about when I was working for the World Bank. And it's something that we are studying here at the university. So, for example, during the pandemic, we know that many companies, even the smallest micro entrepreneurs, they went and used digital payments. They went on e-commerce platforms. But what we discovered is after 2022, when all of the pandemic restrictions were taken out, many of these micro retailers, these micro companies, they went back to analog, right? Because we forget that for many of us, digital tools like smartphones, buying airtime, load data, this is practically nothing to us. But think of a small retailer where it's not just the digital technology that's expensive, right? It's not just the phone, but also the monthly bills that you have to pay to the phone company. But it's also the technological capabilities of your customers. Many of them were dependent on some of their children that were working with them, that were at home. But once the kids went to school, they could no longer utilize the tech that they had become accustomed to. So I think this is one key issue that we need to talk about, right? While many countries, and even within a country like the Philippines, many of our populations have gone fully digital. There's a large segment of our society that have limited access to know-how, education, connectivity, Wi-Fi signal, electricity. So, in fact, AI might not just displace people, but they might create a bigger digital divide between the haves and the have-nots. So, one of the things that we're also looking at here at our university is how to promote digital transformation through what we call digital public infrastructure. Right, so the building blocks of a digital transformation requires digital payment technologies, digital identification, GPS systems, encrypted files, because it's these building blocks that create e-commerce, that create digital platforms, that create digital trade. And many countries don't have proper digital IDs. They don't have proper digital, location systems. And so we shouldn't just work on, getting people smartphones, but creating all the enabling technologies like, like encryption, like payment systems. These are mechanisms by which an entire digital ecosystem can flourish. And the second thing that we wanted to highlight, apart from the digital divide and the need to create digital public infrastructure, is the secondary or probably the side effects of digitalization, right? So, for example, we know that AI is great, but we also know that AI requires a lot of computers, a lot of silicon chips, a lot of water, a lot of electricity. And this is exacerbating the climate crisis that many countries are facing. The Philippines is, at the edge of the Pacific Ocean. The typhoons that we receive year on year are getting worse. And so the question becomes, yes, we like to have more digital technologies, but are we willing to risk the fact that these things require more water, more electricity, more energy, which will create resource constraints, which will create climate change? And so we need to also make sure that as we benefit from this digital transformation, that we also make sure that we are able to resolve the climate concerns that these things also generate. And then I guess finally is the issue of geopolitics, right? Unfortunately, we live in more interesting times. And the issue with just like climate change is that countries that are not part of any global alliance, that are not part of the global conflicts, we also get drawn into this, right? No one is safe. Things that happen in the Middle East, in Asia, in Europe, in the Americas, right? They now rebound all over the place. So, for example, the Philippines were an isolated archipelago, but because we are near potential, conflict zones, means that we could be drawn into a geopolitical conflict, even if we don't want to be part of this. So I think this is unfortunately the world that many of our listeners are into, right? While you have many benefits from digital transformation. Even this whole Zoom call would not have been possible, right? To actually draw people from Asia and Europe free in a dialogue with very little cost to any of us was something unimaginable 5, 10 years ago. And so now it's very, very easy. We do it all the time. But this comes as a cost to the environment. This comes at a cost to peace and order in the world. And so I'm hoping that we can have a lot of the benefits of Society 5.0 and try to figure out a way to resolve the challenges. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Roberto. Dr. Sultan, also very happy to see you again and have you here in this panel. What are your perspectives?
Thank you. Thank you very much first for your excellent presentation, Karsten. I think you have summarized very well the major trends, and if I, would have had this task to summarize them, I would have probably pointed out exactly the same trends that you highlighted. So I think it's an excellent summary of what is going on. What I want to highlight a little bit is the interaction between these different trends, because these trends often get mentioned side by side. And I think what is really important is that you have sometimes you see a presentation on climate, sometimes you see a presentation on AI, sometimes you see a presentation on demography, sometimes you see a presentation on inequality, sometimes you see a presentation on global conflicts, but very rarely do you see the connection between these issues. And they're not happening side by side, they're actually happening in an interaction with each other. Just to give you a couple of examples of what I'm thinking about, on the one hand, you're looking for economic growth. So countries that are poorer, people within countries who are relatively poor relative to the elites, they are looking for economic growth. But if you're looking for economic growth, that immediately clashes with climate change. If you have sustained climate change, if you have sustained growth, that leads to sustained climate change. So there's a clash between those two interests there. Or let's say people are looking for more AI, but we all know that AI is incredibly energy intensive. And this at the moment means greenhouse gas intensive. So let's introduce AI. Let's all use AI. It has fantastic potential. We all agree that it has fantastic potential for humanity technology-wise. But at the same time, it has terrible potential in terms of the environment. So there's a clash again between those two. Or another example is Dr. Fitra Faisal Hastiadi. He mentioned the demography. So there's a lot of discussion about how, let's say, China is now facing a problem because they stopped their demographic growth and they don't have enough young people. and countries which have young people might have a potential there. But at the same time, there's also a lot of discussion about automatization. So we're saying jobs are going to be taken by, routinizable blue-collar jobs are going to be taken by robots. Routinizable white-collar jobs are going to be taken by algorithms, and non-routinizable white-collar jobs are going to be taken by artificial intelligence. So effectively, almost everybody's jobs are a threat. And at the same time, we are worrying about the demographic sustainability. We're saying we must make more babies. Everybody must go out and make millions of babies immediately, because otherwise it's not sustainable. And what's going to happen to all the people who are going to get older and older? Who's going to pay for their pensions? But can you have these two at the same time? I mean, on the one hand, you are either saying we need more babies, or because they will have jobs to maintain the old people, or you are saying jobs are going to be taken by automatization, but you can't have it both at the same time. It's just not possible. So I think there's a lot of sort of parallel discussions, which I think need to be connected. And once you make those connections, you realize that there is a conflict often between those discussions and between those processes, and that kind of challenges you to make up your mind about what you actually believe is happening, or what isn't really happening. What are some sort of what are some kind of less important issues, less important concerns, what we should be worried about less, and what it is that we really should be worried about more. I personally believe that climate is by far the most important issue, and that is highly related to inequalities as well. Climate brings forth the issue of global inequalities within nations, etc. I wanted to just draw the attention to these sort of interactions between the processes. Thank you.
Thank you, all of you. Thank you, Dr. Sultan. I, of course, fully agree that you need to have this consolidated view and perspective on any kind of scenarios. And time is flying. I can see Freya, you're there. I think we should hear the audience and get some questions from the people on this call.
Yes. So we have a lot of questions coming in.
Good.
I think we have a really enthusiastic group here. I'm going to follow up Dr. Zoltan's points with a question from Naksh Nasir, who raised this point about, or following Dr. Roberto's point about the digital divide, and asks, how do you think governments can prioritize digital transformation with middle and low income countries, especially when they are being faced by other major socio-political risks? And I'll add in this point about that Dr. Zoltan shared, especially about climate change here, when we're talking about mitigating climate change and the technologies needed to build infrastructure and so on. But how do we balance that out with the economic advancement as well? So any thoughts, Dr. Roberto, Dr. Zoltan, Dr. Fitra, and Carsten, of course, please free to jump in as well.
Please. Roberto, did you have any comments?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the government does play a key role here in terms of policy, because in essence, digital transformation requires three things. It requires electricity, it requires cell phones and cell towers so that you get Wi-Fi, and then it also requires this thing that we call digital public infrastructure, right? So these are the IDs, these are the payment systems, because in essence, what happens is that if you create in cybersecurity, right? So if you create, digital transformation without putting these building blocks in, what you have are a lot of digital scams, right? What you have is what we receive right now, where every day you receive a text message from someone saying that, you've won something, click this button, and suddenly all your money is gone, right? So I think we need to make sure that for digital transformation to be effective, we can't just rely on the physical, right? The wires, the signals, the Wi-Fi, and the cell phones, but we also need to make sure that the building blocks of, make sure that we know that we're transacting with someone, that it's that particular person, that we send money to someone, that your money is safe, secure. It's not being hacked by a third party. So I think these are some of the issues that we need to face, because as more things go digital, that actually opens us to catastrophic risks, right? Where suddenly a virus can knock, banks, and steal money from bank accounts, right? Which used to require a gun and an escape vehicle, right? Now you can do it from another country, right? So I think we need to make sure that everything is inclusive, and make sure that we really build that digital ecosystem that helps everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Roberto. Dr. Fistra, Dr. Sultan, anything to comment here?
Yeah. So yeah, government is one thing. I believe this is actually a very crucial factor, but we need uh, to see the government as the ecosystem enabler, not as a player. So most of the time, the government is trying to regulate things and becomes also a player at the same time. So it crowds out the creativity, yeah, of the ecosystem. So that's actually the problem of most of developing countries. So the government is trying to be all-knowing, but it turns out to be is not knowing anything. But that's actually the most difficult issue. But to become optimal, so we need not only the government, of course, the government is important, but we need the so-called quadruple helix ecosystem. So we need the industries, we need also the universities. I'm also coming from Universitas Indonesia. We need also the communities. Yeah, this is actually what we call as community, and of course the government. So quadruple helix ecosystem. Also, from the regional perspective, ASEAN is hailing the way to become to push the digital economic framework agreement. It is believed that ASEAN can have more or less 2 trillion of US dollars coming from the digital economic framework ecosystem. But the problem is, maybe some fellow ASEAN member countries also already know this, actually the inherent problem of ASEAN. ASEAN alone is going nowhere. So we have so many arrangement, we have so many vision, goals, and so on and so forth, but we are going nowhere. So that is why we need also to go beyond ASEAN. That's why the ASEF, not only ASEAN, but also fellow Europeans, to become entangled, to strengthen each other. And for the case of Indonesia, Indonesia is already having a consensus with EU to have Indonesia EU SEPA. So this should be the bandwagon effect for the region, ASEAN region especially, to become much more entangled to the one of the largest trading partners in the world. So we are here to be, having a convergence to each other, just like Baldwin mentioned in his book, and to escape from the middle income trap for most of the developing countries. That's why we need collaboration. Not the government is telling us what to do, but the government is, facilitating the actors within the ecosystem.
Can I just add to this questions, when building on what Dr. Fistra said? One of my concerns is actually when I look to governments, and at least governments in Europe right now, I sometimes question their willingness and ability to have this long-term perspective. It's difficult to measure this, and I'm not sure how it is in your countries, dear panelists, but at least in my super small country of Denmark, it is as if we talk about these long-term perspectives, whether it's opportunities or threats, everything we talked about here today. And then when we see the actual political actions or plans, it gets too focused on small scale stuff. It gets too focused on the present. And I'm not suggesting that politicians are stupid or anything. That's probably just how systems are working. But for me, I see that as a challenge. We need this voice of, also as you said, Dr. Sultan, of aggregating all the trends and creating solutions based on this diversity of input with a long-term perspective. Freya, back to you. We have time for more questions.
Yes, definitely. Okay, moving to we've talked a lot about different uncertainties also in the megatrend uncertainties, but there's a lot of opportunities as well when we talk about technology and digital transformation. So we have a question from Mohammed Adafila, who asks, in what ways can digital transformation promote inclusive and sustainable economic models? What are the opportunities we have here with digital transformation?
Gentlemen?
Yeah, let me start. So it really opens many doors. So, for example, there's a number of new industries that are just blossoming in the Philippines now, thanks to digital technologies. The one of the more recently talked about is a virtual assistant, where you have someone working for like a lone person working in the Philippines, being a virtual assistant to someone in the US or Europe, right, where they work in their comforts of their home. They're able to provide different services to someone who's far away. I mean, this is just, and you now have thousands of people doing this, right? You saw e-commerce where suddenly people can now work from home. You buy stuff, you produce stuff, you can bake cakes and sell them, all over the country, right? And even all over the world, depending on what you produce. So I think it's creating all sorts of new systems, right? Even Netflix now, you can watch any show from anywhere practically, and it's creating all sorts of a boom in cinema and TV production, from Korea, the Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand, Turkey, right? So it's like, so I think this thing no longer is new to any of us, right? But I think the goal is to really make sure that the people furthest down the chain are not inadvertently left out, that we are able to protect people's identities, especially with AI, where fraud could potentially escalate. So we just need to make sure that we put together some of these what do you call this, guardrails, so that many of these digital new industries that none of us have even heard. If you looked at LinkedIn, for example, people's job descriptions 5 years ago, 10 years ago, many of these jobs that they have today don't exist, like prompt engineer, or AI consultant, or social media optimizer, like all of these things didn't exist, right? So I think it will create all sorts of new jobs in the future.
Dr. Fisra, Dr. Sultan?
I just wanted to say that yes, technology is a huge enabler of potential, but I think if you're looking for an economic model is mostly a social model. It's something that it's not a technological model in the sense that as long as you have a growing economy, you will have, and you have growing populations and you have growing consumption, etc. Technology is not going to save you. So I think primarily we should be thinking in terms of the kind of society and the kind of economic model that we're looking at. I don't think we can expect technology in itself to solve the issue of sustainability for us. It can help, certainly. It's one of those aspects, but often there's this thing called techno-optimism, and I think techno-optimism often replaces societal thinking in many people's vision of the future. It doesn't quite do the job, I think.
Thank you, Dr. Sultan. Dr. Fisra, anything to add?
Yeah, so several years ago, I've built a model that is called the model of innovation. So it is comprised of a couple differential equations. So what I'm about to say is actually technology through the modeling is actually growth enhancer, disruptions over disruptions over disruptions. So the model is basically mentioning that technology is perpetual, disruptions is on the way, and we have disruptors as well as disruptees. As Baldwin mentioned in his book, Globotics Upheaval, globalization, robotics, and it also creates upheaval. Disruptions over disruptions is over disruption. We also have constraints over constraints over constraint, especially for the people that cannot compete. So technology can be a double-edged sword. Yeah, can be okay. Yeah, can be actually against humanity to some extent. I remember the discussion between Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg just in 2017 or 2018 about AI. So it was not just like today, but AI at that time can it actually eliminate humanity, or can it enhance humanity? I'm with the POV of Mark Zuckerberg at that time when he said that, yeah, it depends on the people, whether or not we can actually utilize the technology. Take for example, ChatGPT. As an academician, I'm using ChatGPT for productivity. I'm also, telling my students to use it for productive use. So it's okay as long as you can utilize it, just like calculator when it was first invented. So everyone was actually was very scared of the technology called calculator. But now everyone is having calculator to increase productivity. So it's just like solo growth model suggests, technology can enhance productivity, but be careful. Technology can also, eliminate those who cannot compete. So that is why we need the government to maintain the ecosystem, to facilitate so that we have the same level of playing field. Just like Dr. Galang previously mentioned about the digital divide. We need actually to diminish and to eliminate all the gap, between the people, from rural, urban areas, the one that is actually digitally enabled, the one that is actually digital savvy, with the one that cannot utilize technology. We can, the government, why we could need the government is actually to cover all of the things.
Can I just ask you, Dr. Fitra, with this sort of divide and these sort of scenarios you are sketching here, are you personally an optimist, or do you see the threats as the bigger thing? Because I don't know what to think.
I'm an optimist because
Good.
yeah. So because most of my research, I have my PhD in international trade, but starting from 2014, I have several of my research actually that is actually taking technology and innovation as one of the most important thing to enhance growth, trade, and productivity. But the thing is, sometimes the people is actually the one that is constraining the convergence. Take, for example, nowadays we have the tariff ongoing, which is actually, disruptions of the global value chain, disruptions of technology, disruptions of humanity, because we need to be connected to each other, not to be disrupted, not to be disconnected through tariff. So that's actually, our primary concern nowadays, not the technology, but the people that is in power.
Thank you. Freya, I think we have time for one or two more questions before we have closing remarks.
Yeah. I'm going to follow on from this point that was just brought up about balance, and how do governments especially recognize this and allocate resources. So there's a question from Sheena from the Philippines, who asks about, in relation to healthcare specifically, how do we achieve a balance of healthcare that's economically feasible but also is altruistic and human-centered? And I think this can be applied to several different areas of socioeconomic. We can talk about climate change as well. How do we ensure it's economically feasible but also inclusive and ethical in the decision making? So perhaps some thoughts on this aspect of balancing resources, and how do we have economic growth but also balance out these aspects of government decision making especially.
Gentlemen, any thoughts on healthcare?
So yeah, so maybe I can start. So technology can really revolutionize healthcare, right? I think many of the problems that we face in not just the emerging markets, but in the developed world is that as we all age, it's becoming more and more difficult to get access to doctors and good medical care, right? It's becoming more expensive. And so I think AI can help make doctors and nurses diagnose better. Healthcare is helping pharmaceutical companies come up with better and better drugs. Healthcare can be democratized. You can have like video consultations. You can now have, send your x-rays to anywhere in the world. So all of these things. So there's many, like technology in healthcare are like a great. So talking about what Dr. Fitra mentioned, no, if we need a disruption, the area where a major disruption could happen is really in healthcare. But I think the risk that technologies do face is the monopolization, right? The issue that what technologies create, especially in information technologies, is this what do you call it? These network effects, right? The person with the most data, the person with the most movies, the person with the most people inside their social media tend to get the most followers, and therefore it creates this virtuous cycle where more and more of these things get monopolized. So it will be the same in healthcare, right? The company that has the best access to most people's healthcare data or has the best access to the best computing powers will be able to monopolize things. So I think that's where we need to find a way to strike a balance. You're already seeing how, e-commerce, for example, is being dominated by large, big tech companies like Amazon, right? You can see how transport is being monopolized by, riding apps like Uber. And so I think that's also the fear in most sectors, right? While it can revolutionize things, it actually creates a winner-take-all structure. And so I think that's something we need to be wary of, especially if we're all going to give our data to a large, healthcare provider. Then suddenly, that entity has more and more power over all of us and our health outcomes. And they can sell our data, they can manipulate our data. And so that's, I think, the guardrails again that we need to think about.
Dr. Fisra?
Yeah. So this is actually difficult. Yeah, how to to have a high growth but an inclusive growth. So this is also a problem for Indonesia. So just now, Indonesia, we have the second quarter of the GDP growth being announced. So 5.12%. 5.12% is above expectation because the market consensus is only 4.8%. But the thing is, with 5.12%, which is actually the above world average, the poor people is still there. So is it inclusive? Yes, yeah. Maybe yes, maybe no. But if you are seeing the trajectory, yes, of course, the poverty rate is going down from 8.57% last year to 8.47% this year. But if we take, for example, the World Bank poverty line calculation, so it's different from our methodology. We have localities, we have to actually domestic attributions that is differentiate the methodology or our way to calculate poverty with the World Bank. But if you're taking the World Bank's calculation, actually the number of poor people in Indonesia, the rate is about more than 50%. So that is why sometimes, we're trying to reach a high economic growth, but in a way that if we are, going higher, we are actually leaving some behind. So that's actually the most difficult task, because in Indonesia, every 1% of economic growth, it only creates 100,000 of people in the job market. It is actually a downward revision from the one that we had in maybe 10 or 20 years ago. 1% can absorb 500,000 of people. So in a way that we see the productivity everywhere, but we are leaving behind, or in the case of Indonesia, we are leaving behind the population, the rest of the population. Most of the people are being left behind. So that's actually the most challenging job from the government here, to utilize the people. That's why, again, coming back again to my prologue earlier, that's why the Indonesian government, tried to invest more to the human capital. Because for the last 10 years, we are building infrastructure everywhere, anywhere. Almost most of the time, we are focusing our government spending to infrastructures. But what for? Because the people cannot utilize the infrastructures. Just like Amartya Sen once said, we have the commodities, you have the commodities and also the capabilities. Can the commodities be utilized? Is actually can be most of the people capable to utilize the commodities. So Amartya Sen in his book mentioning about a disabled person. So the government is giving the disabled person a bicycle. So this is commodities, but can this disabled person utilize the bicycle? No. So it cannot be only top down. It should be bottom up and top down all together. So it's not the government is telling anyone anything. Yeah, the government is all knowing, but the government needs also to collaborate, coordinate, and to absorb the aspiration from the people. And the growth is for the people, for the nation, not only for the elites. So I remember what Aceh Molu said. We need to avoid extractive economic institution. We need to push the inclusive economic institution. So it's not the oligarch that is actually matters most, it's the people.
Yeah, I do agree. And I guess, Dr. Sultan, that you will also sort of nod your head. The thing about inequality that you mentioned in relation to climate change is actually one of the key factors we need to address going forward.
Yes, I was listening to your presentation, Karsten, and you mentioned that the average growth rate of the the global economy has been about 3.5% in recent decades. And now I'm listening to Dr. Fitra Faisal Hastiadi saying it's 5% in Indonesia at the moment. And I'm thinking there's this calculation that if you continue the global growth at 3.5% until the end of the century, so if every single year we continue this trend, which has been the underlying trend in the global economy for decades and decades and decades, that would mean the multiplication of the global economy by a factor of about 10 or 11. And I'm just thinking that's impossible. So if anybody thinks that we can multiply a global economy which already produces much more greenhouse gases than we need, which already produces much more plastic, waste, etc., etc., if you believe that by the end of the century, we would have a global economy which would be 10 times the size of what we have today, and I don't even believe that we could double this economy. I think even a doubling is impossible, not to talk about a tenfold increase. So I think it's time to start thinking about degrowth, start thinking about how we should achieve better distribution of what we have without the growth. So we cannot expect growth to deliver what poor people need. We need to be thinking about redistribution, because redistribution is the only way that in a non-growing economy, we would be able to fulfill all the requirements of poor people around the world. And we need to also start thinking about population decline. So I'm very convinced that actually we have overpopulated our globe. If we were to feed the population of the world without producing greenhouse gases, so at the moment we are feeding the global population mostly based on artificial fertilizer, which is very greenhouse gas intensive. If we were to feed the population of the world without greenhouse gases, the calculation is that we could feed about 3 to 4 billion people. 3 to 4 billion people. We are now at 8.5, and we're headed towards 11 billion people, according to UN estimates at the peak. So we're overpopulated, we're overgrowing. We simply need a much bigger rethinking of the global economy, rather than just believe in the traditional idea that economic growth is going to bring more prosperity for poorer people.
And on that note, I would like to thank all our panelists here today, Dr. Fithra, Dr. Roberto, Dr. Sultan. I think we touched upon many points of relevance in this discussion. Personally, I would love for this to continue, but I know, Freya, that we have a time limit and that you will be shouting in a minute or two if we don't say our thank yous now. So thank you to all our panelists and to the audience here today on my side before I leave the floor to Freya. If you would like to continue this discussion, I would be happy to continue on LinkedIn. Anywhere you can find me, and I can see Dr. Roberto is nodding as well. So please feel free, all of you, to reach out. We would be super happy to continue this. Thank you, ASEF, for giving us this opportunity to discuss some trends and scenarios that are important, that are maybe a little bit scary, some of them, but at least have this potential for huge change. Over to you, Freya.
Thank you so much, Carsten, and to our wonderful panelists. I think, as you said, Carsten, I think we could continue this conversation for a long time, and I think there were so many questions also coming through in the Q&A that we cannot cover everything. We knew this topic was very, very broad in scope when we came into the session, but we hope our audience here today have heard different inspirational points, different thought-provoking points as we move on to different topics, and some food for thought for you to dive deeper into these topics with your peers, with your colleagues, and with our expert speakers who have kindly offered to have further discussions with you all. With that, though, we are coming to a close for today's session, and we really thank you all for joining us and for asking all your very interesting questions to help guide the discussions today. We have another session next week on what's the future of the environment in Society 5.0. On the screen, you can see the QR code to sign up for this session if you haven't already, as well as the subsequent session, which will be focused on people and work. With that, thank you so much. Huge round of applause to our speakers and Carsten for moderating. Thank you all for joining us today. To all of our wonderful participants and audience, thank you, and see you all again next week. Take care, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.